Let's assume we're talking about your music video for question 1B. It's fresher in your mind and it's useful to be able to look back on your blog to see the audience research you did. When you do a critical evaluation of your music video, you'll see that you had applied the demographic profiling that you had done of your audience in your research to make sure you produced something that appealed to them, that possibly they learnt something from, that they got enjoyment from, and that they were going to watch. In the 1970s, John Hartley produced a classification of the demographics of an audience, and you can see the 7 groups here. You have the self, the gender, the age group, the class, the ethnicity, the family, and the nation, which you considered when you were making your product. If you were making a pop music video, you might have targeted it mainly at the female gender, at an age group of say 12 to 17. Your choice of music might appeal to a particular ethnic group, and your music video will have reflected that. Your music video also reflects the psychographic profiling you did of your audience during your research and planning stages, when you found out things like what sort of films they watch, what sort of food they like, where they shop, what sort of clothes they choose to wear, what their hobbies are, what websites they use. And you will have reflected all this in your choice of mise-en-scène, your choice of actor, the style of costume they wore, the sort of dancing they do in the video, whether or not the video has a narrative or if it's mainly performance-based. Of the 7 types of people that psychographics put your audience into, you might well have found during your audience research that your audience falls into the explorers area, and so you will have targeted your music video accordingly, making it new and innovative, something different, something exciting for them. And your music video then reflected the results of your full analysis. Who is the audience? What do they already know about this kind of music video and expect? You can use your audience expectations videos as an example. Demographics, their age, gender, their education, their interests. Why are they watching your music video? Do they want to escape? Do they want to learn something? Do they want to have fun? Do they want to dance? The environment, how will they be watching this video? Imagine, are they going to look at it on YouTube, on the TV, on Facebook? You considered the needs of your audience. Are they watching it to escape? Are they watching it just for fun? Are they going to be watching it to keep up with their friends, to find out about the latest fashion, to find out about the latest dance moves? You will have customised your music video according to their specific interests and needs, likes and dislikes. And you will have considered their expectations when you followed the conventions of that kind of music video, or when you subverted the conventions if you thought that they needed something new and fresh. One theory you considered was the reception theory, and this was really pioneered in the 1970s by David Morley and somebody called Stuart Hall. So the idea of reception theory is that you as the producer encode your text, which is your music video, with a meaning or a message that you want your audience to understand, and then the audience decode that message from your music video to understand the purpose or the meaning of the text. And so, as part of his reception theory, Stuart Hall identified 3 types of audience readings. Firstly, the dominant or preferred reading. This is where the audience decodes the message as you, the producer, want them to do, and broadly agrees with it, such as if you watch a political speech and you agree with what the politician is saying. And secondly, there's the negotiated reading. That's where your audience will accept, reject, or refine some parts of your text in the light of the views they already have. For example, if you listen to a political speech and you maybe don't agree or disagree with it, you can see some parts that are true and some parts that aren't, or you're just disinterested. And thirdly, you have the oppositional reading. That's when the audience recognise the dominant meaning that you've intended, but they reject it for some reason, for the cultural reasons or political reasons, or they have a different ideology. So if you watch a political speech and you completely reject it and feel the opposite to it, then you are having an oppositional reading according to reception theory. Obviously, what you're going for in your music video is the dominant or preferred reading, so you need to be careful that you really appeal to your audience and that they understand what you want them to understand and enjoy the video. So they won't be shocked by it or bored by it or think it just isn't something anything to do with them. Here are those 3 readings written down. There's 2 other really good pieces of terminology there as well. There's the hegemonic reading, which is the same as the dominant reading. And then there's the counter-hegemonic reading, which is the oppositional reading. One audience theory you need to be aware of is the hypodermic syringe model or hypodermic needle theory, which is the idea that the mass media, whether it's television or newspapers, inject or spoon feed the audience with ideas and the audience just passively drinks it in. When you were making your music video, you were aware that the audience was more sophisticated than this, and you needed to take that sophistication into consideration. And thirdly and finally, the uses and gratifications theory is something that is very important when you evaluate and analyse your own music video. That assumes that we actively seek out the media to satisfy particular individual needs that we have, and those needs might be to reinforce our own personal identity. So we're looking at those artists in the music videos perhaps as role models. They might be to find companionship and meaning by being part of a group. So you are all discussing this music video the next day after it comes out. People also use media text to find out about current affairs, news and weather. Well, they might not be finding out about current affairs from your music video, but they might be finding out about the latest fashion or the latest jewellery that should be worn. And finally, people use the media to communicate with each other. So they might add your music video onto their Facebook page and talk about it with each other. So let's get back to the original purpose, how to get full marks in 1B. So say your question is, analyse one of your productions in terms of audience. You've got to discuss how audiences are represented and how your product applies to them. Mention those different theories we've talked about and your audience consumption habits. Every media product has to have an audience, otherwise in both a business sense and probably an artistic sense too, it would be judged a failure. So in your music video, you will have been looking at the idea of a target audience, who you were aiming it at and why. You should have taken feedback from a real audience in some way at the end of the project for your digital evaluation, which involved finding out how the audience really read what you had made. Think about back to AS as well, when you were asked to consider how your product addressed your audience. What was it about it that particularly worked to speak to them? All this needs to be effectively linked to audience theory, which you then need to reference and apply. So, for your introduction, you need to define your audience. Use a quotation such as John Hartley here. Outline the production you've chosen to evaluate, and then explain you're going to discuss a range of ideas about how audience theory applies to your music video. Then on to paragraph 2. So in that second paragraph, describe some of the key features of audience theory that we've looked at in this session. Outline the ideas of theorists such as Blumler and Katz, Stuart Hall and David Gauntlet, relating their ideas to your music video, explaining that the idea of audience is quite complex and fluid perhaps, that the idea of one target audience is not really applicable, and that different audiences will read different texts in different ways. In your third paragraph, you can start to apply the concept of audience, making really close references and using examples from your own music video. You might say that the artist wears statement jewellery, which is iconic and which the young teenage audience will recognise and identify with. And finally, write about the ways in which the ideas about audience that you've talked about work in relation to 3 areas of your music video: the production, the distribution and the exchange, and also ways in which those ideas might not apply or could be challenged. Finally, in your conclusion, sum up by returning to the question, comment on your analysis in terms of audience, and say how your music video challenges or follows the conventions of audience theory.